Welcome to the Honest Psychologist podcast, where two licensed clinical psychologists have joined the chat. I'm Dr. Whitney Graff.
I'm Dr. Paige Hover. We bring our years of expertise to the conversations you're already having, breaking down the topics shaping culture, social media, and everyday life.
No psychobabble, just relatable discussions about how our minds work and why it matters. All right.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't know if it's morning for our listeners today, but
well, right. You're an hour ahead of me, or closer to the East Coast. You get all the weather that I had. Like, you're just a day behind me weather-wise. So I can tell you that yesterday was this like gorgeous sunny day.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to it. That is coming like Tuesday and Wednesday.
Maybe you'll have like it was crisp. It was cold out, but like the sun helped so much, and now it's overcast and I'm blue.
Yeah. No, we got some peaks of blue skies today, so I appreciate that. And I'm really gonna try to not stir my coffee 1,000 times and just sip it, because I know that makes noise.
I'm sorry, why does your straw have a mouthpiece?
Because I actually it's a rubber thing on the tip so that it doesn't chip your teeth if you because some people were having trouble like with the metal straws, and I got this from my grandmother. She's like, here, you should try this. I was like, okay.
It's a tiny bit geriatric.
It is a little bit geriatric.
But if it solves a problem.
It wasn't really a problem I had, is more so it's like I forget we're recording, but it's a little bit of a comfort, like it's a little sensory comfort. I like the plastic. It's like thick plastic.
Sure. I mean, why not? I never liked the metal straws. It's just weird to put your mouth on a metal straw.
Yeah, so it helps because I like the metal straws because it keeps them cold. Like, it keeps my drinks like super cold. And then there's just like a little softer edge to it. But
can I tell you, totally different topic, but can I tell you what this eye doctor I went to see?
Yes.
So I'm like a tiny bit obsessed with doctors who are candid with you.
Okay.
This is going to seem so small, but like I am obsessed. So I never go to the eye doctor. So I just went, and it's because I get this light sensitivity and this like graininess. And so he did this full thorough exam, and my eyes are great, except for this like, he says it's like basically a benign but annoying condition where they get kind of swollen and irritated.
Okay. Do you not have contacts or glasses?
No, I have like 20/20 vision.
Oh, I do not know what that's like. I've had glasses since I was 11.
And I thought for sure, I was like, okay, I'm making this appointment. This is when I find out that my vision is starting to decrease. I was like, oh, great. But then, they didn't tell me actually a number or anything, but they just said, oh yeah, you did great on that. Oh yeah, you did great on that. I was like, oh, cool. But he says, well, the best thing you can do for this condition, he says, is free. And I was like, oh, I'm listening. He goes, you go like twice a day, morning and night. You go in the bathroom, you get a washcloth, you run it under hot water so that and you wring it out. So now the washcloth is warm, and you press it against your eyelids. And he goes, you're going to do this, and you're going to do it for like 30 seconds, and you're going to think that's enough. It's not. You're going to want to walk away. You can't. You have to run it back under the water, wring it out, put it against your eyelids. You need to do this for 5 minutes.
5 whole minutes? Wow. I say that because when I go through like mindfulness exercises with people, that 5 whole minutes?
5 whole minutes.
My hand?
Well, and this is where I'm obsessed, is because he goes, yeah, you're going to think you've done enough. You haven't. He goes, trust me, I have to do this myself sometimes. So you got to set a timer on your phone for 5 minutes and sit there holding it under the water, wringing it out, pressing it, holding it under the water, wringing it out, pressing it. And he goes, now, do I do this myself? No, because I'm busy living my life. And that was the part where like completely won me over, because like you feel like doctors sometimes they want to present like, here's what you need to do to take care of yourself, and like I'm going to encourage you to do it. He was like, no, this is the pain. It's a really long time. And I'm supposed to do it too, and I don't do it. And I was like, I love this.
I mean, I think that's something too that even like our patients will crave, like to see like, well, do you do this? Or like, I
Oh.
mean, I think in therapy it's a little bit different. There's certain things we are going to keep behind, closed doors or not necessarily going to say out loud. But I do think that they appreciate the normalcy of like, well, is that something you do? And it's like, yeah, I do, or no, I don't. But
Uh,
do what I say, not as I do.
well, yeah, I mean, exactly. I don't know if I feel there aren't a ton of times when I'm in the professional capacity where I won't. If somebody asks, I'm going to be fairly honest. Like, I
Hmm.
don't have a meditation practice, and I don't feel like I have kept that a very good secret. It's just, it has just never taken hold. But I believe in it, and I will tell you the ways that I use mindfulness kind of in
Yes.
my day-to-day life. I just
Yes.
prefer to weave it in a little bit more. So anyway, so candid doctors, just my absolute favorite.
Yeah, because it doesn't help if just hear, yeah, do this. And it like what you're probably thinking when he's going through that is like, how the hell am I going to read this in all day? Like, how am I going to weave this into my busy life? 5 whole minutes every day. And it's nice that he can like hear that and be like, hey, by the way, I'm just going to let you know, this isn't really,
It's
I
not
struggle
very
with it too.
realistic. Yes, yeah, twice a day, 5 whole minutes. And he's like, and you're gonna basically not do it. But this is what you need to do to treat this. So I mean, I felt in a lot of ways like I was being treated like an adult, where it was sort of like,
Yeah.
here's the upside, here's the downside. You'll make your choice, but kind of like, don't come complaining to me if it doesn't get better because you didn't do what I told you to do. Which it
Right.
wasn't,
Mhm.
he didn't say that, obviously. But it's like, here, I'll put this in your hands and you do with it what you want.
Mhm. I'm always trying to make sure I tell clients like if I go through something or I suggest something that maybe doesn't feel super feasible or I can see it in their body language maybe that they're starting to be
Mhm.
like, I don't know. It's like, well, tell me, like, what's your thoughts? Like, how do you feel like can you weave this in? I think I'm always encouraging people to say, like, I don't think it's gonna work. Well, tell me why. Like, because that's also information too of where do you feel like the sticking points are? Like if this is something that maybe you think like you want to try it. Like maybe the ringing out seems like, well, yeah, I'd love that result, but here are the ways that's going to get in the way. Like I don't think I'm going to do this. I don't because then you can problem solve with that, or you can just acknowledge like, hey, this is what the results are going to look like. Kind of like the eye doctor was saying, like, yeah, if you do this every day, it works great. If you don't, because we have a busy life, then it's going to work okay. But here is an option,
Mhm. Yes, exactly. Exactly. I feel like if people are listening, if you're in therapy, like be really honest with your therapist. If they tell
Yeah.
you to try something and there is absolutely no way that you are going to do it, just
Hmm.
tell them.
Hmm.
Is if it's a matter of problem solving that, I do it exactly how you described it, where I'm like, I noticed your face, like your mouth said yes, but your face said no.
I had a therapist actually call that out for me, being like, I saw a little bit of an eye roll when I mentioned mindfulness, and I was like, oh crap.
Did you know
You
you eye
saw-
rolled?
What?
Did you know you eye rolled?
I think I could feel it. I thought it was more subtle. I also am known for I think that my face is neutral and it's not. I've gotten that feedback since I was a kid.
Me too.
Like, Paige, fix your face. Like
Oh,
it's saying everything you're thinking.
my face does it too.
Almost involuntarily, but it was funny that she kind of called that. It was great that she called that out because at the time, like I was also preaching mindfulness to my clients and she gave it to me. She's like, well, have you ever tried mindfulness? And I just immediately felt like, oh, that's so overdone.
Or you're like, yes, I've heard of this. And then there's like this art form to, does the person suggesting that to you really think that this will help? If you, Paige, do more mindfulness, you know, and do they
Yeah.
want to like lean on you a little bit to be like, no, really, please, really, like, let's try it again.
Yeah.
let's really try this? Or is it sort of like, this is one idea amongst many, like we could do this or we could do something different,
Because I
in this
think there's
case.
room for both of them, right? Because there are some times that a client's going to say, like, no, that doesn't work. Or if you're listening and in therapy, you maybe felt like that's cockamamie, but maybe it actually works. Like maybe it is something that like, oh, maybe they're giving me something that I'm just like, maybe it makes me have to look at other things. I don't have time to do that. Well, I don't want to look at that. I don't have time to do that because that's a whole other ball of wax and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, sometimes it's okay to kind of be pushed on it a little bit and kind of have the
Mhm.
therapist like stick with it and kind of explain that. But that doesn't happen if there's no dialogue around it. If you're not
Yes.
willing to say like, yeah, this is why I don't think that would work, or this is my reaction to it, or I notice, this like kind of feeling like, I mean, I felt like for years mindfulness was inaccessible, that it just was like, I don't have time to sit down and meditate, like I don't have time to just get into a Zen mode. And then it was remembering that you don't have to be in a Zen mode. Like that's not the point.
Right.
It's not to relax, it's to pay attention to what's in front of you. Like, and if what's in front of you is really frustrating or nerve-wracking, that's fine, but you're paying attention to it. And that's a skill that will become helpful in other ways and eventually become relaxing. But when I think about it, of just like first handed to me, of like, well, you're stressed. Have you ever tried meditating? It's like, I hadn't thought about that. Funny enough, no, I hadn't thought about
Well,
that.
do you remember like I remember it was around 2015 mindfulness fully peaked. It was everywhere. You like couldn't go through the checkout at the grocery store without seeing like, magazines like, is mindfulness the answer? Mindfulness your way to calm. I was like, "Oh my God, we are inundated."
Yeah.
And it just so happened, like we were at the end of our training and you and I had been trained in techniques that used mindfulness. It was this weird coalescing of like our professional, interest or whatever, and the moment that society was in. And I remember talking to like my husband's coworkers where they were like, "Do you want to come to our company and teach us all mindfulness?" And I was like, I don't know. Like, what does it pay? They're like, well, it's not a real thing. We're just making it up. We just want you to come teach us this. I was like, it's not gonna make everything better.
No.
It's not gonna cure everything that ails you. And when you bring it into corporate, a lot of places started using it in place of just making changes that would actually help workers. It was like just meditate your way to no longer having work stress. That was garbage, and I did not
Yeah.
care for it.
Well, that has stuck around. I think everybody just kind of corporate kind of filters through the hot topic. And that's like, sleep is actually a pretty popular one right now. Well, can you
Is
talk
that
to us
what's
about
in?
sleep? And it's like,
Oh,
what? Like,
really?
like I've seen that popping around. So I think there are these topics because I think that's where it can fall flat so much for people, is that it's not addressing the bigger concern, right?
Mhm.
Like we're not going to mindful away the business practices that are making your employees feel not appreciated and therefore their work satisfaction. Like that, having a mindful nook or like a meditation pod isn't going to do anything. It's a band-aid, like, and I
Yes.
think that that's where even mindfulness itself, it is such a practice. Like, I think I wouldn't say until the past couple of years that I've really believed in it. And it took me a long time to realize how I was doing it, that I was like, oh, it's only now that I'm like, oh, I've been working at this for like 10 years, really,
Mm,
like trying to, maybe longer than that. I feel like it was first introduced to us. I remember first getting introduced to it second year of grad school, which was what, 2010? I mean, that's 14 years
gosh.
ago now, like, and it's only, I would say in the past 3 to 4 years that I really recognized of like, oh no, I do use this, but it's not, I don't go to yoga. I cook, I walk my dog, I read, like stuff like that where it's like, oh, that can all be mindful and just the zone out and just check in with what's around me or going on a walk or something like that. Like they're always much more active. And it took a long time to realize that that's not the kind of meditation I need. Or my meditation is not the mindfulness I need.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Meditation is not the mindfulness I need.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I can tell you how I use it is like because I do feel like I have that anxious mind and like a sticky mind that can get caught up. And so for me, the biggest thing I need is to keep naming that it's my mind and not to
Mm.
try to take my mind as seriously as it wants me to take it.
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah, last night I had this thought because I had sent this email. Should I tell this story? Um I had this old mentor who lives in Asheville.
Oh
And
my God. Are they
right.
okay?
Okay, so they are. And he is in the, last, phase of life. And I was supposed to visit there back in the
Right.
fall.
Right.
And yeah, so the hurricane hits the weekend before we were gonna fly in. And
Right. I
and
remember that.
yeah, he and I had like kind of a date to meet up and just briefly catch up. I haven't seen him in 20 years, but he was really influential when I was in college, sort of a surrogate dad away from home, um and so we had like then they didn't have any power. So I sent a message first being like, "Hey, I heard something might have happened with this hurricane. Like, what's going on over there, And then I didn't hear anything. And then the full weight of what happened hit me and then I was embarrassed.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
oh God, I really was. And then I was like, oh, I played it too, like, I hope everything's fine, ugh. And then I send another email being like, okay, I've seen it now. I see how terrible things I'm like, I'm thinking of you all. Like we are not going, we're not canceling our trip, obviously, and we hope everything's okay. And I'm concerned and whatever. And days go by because they don't have internet access. And I
Right.
finally get a message, a few days later saying, yeah, our house is mostly okay, but we've relocated for the time being. And so I was kind of embarrassed at how I had originally handled it. It was just ignorance and I just pressed send, I think, a little too quickly or something. So then all these months go by and I've thought of him often,
Hmm.
but it's like, this isn't about me. I haven't seen this person in 20 years. I'm like, I don't know if I really matter to this person right now when someone's going through such a disaster. So even though you think of them from a distance, and then, here's my self-critical mind. I'm like, what does a normal person do? Like, do they reach out or not reach out? And I have been having that debate in my head for months. Reach out or not reach out? Reach out or not reach out? So on Friday, I sent an email that was like, "Hey, I'm just sending well wishes from afar. I like basically trying to convey, like, I know the news cycle has moved on, but you've been in my thoughts." And
Yeah.
I said I haven't reached out because I didn't want to intrude, which is the
Hmm.
honest truth. I'm not
Right.
trying to make it about me. It's just that I care about this person and they've gone through something terrible. And then
Yeah.
when I didn't hear back for 48 hours, I was like, yep, I'm the worst. Totally the worst. Shouldn't have sent it, made it about me. And then I'm like, wait, did I? I tried not to. And so then my mind is giving me all of this, like, you are the worst.
Hmm.
And my husband saw the look on my face yesterday and he goes, something on your mind? And I was like, I don't want to talk about it because I was in this process, this mindfulness process of being like, you have to unhook from that thought. You don't know anything. You don't
Hmm.
know why you haven't received a reply.
Hmm.
You have no idea how your message was received.
Right.
You have like you are just doing that thing you always do, which is like self-criticism or whatever. You're
Yeah.
doing it again. I was like, my
Hmm.
mind is doing this again. And so I was just like in the process of like, I would believe it and then I would like not believe it.
Yep.
And I would get pulled in. I would believe it again. And then I was like, no, you don't know anything about this. You don't know that you're like, you don't know that you're the worst.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
and then I got a lovely reply back this morning. So apparently, yeah, it's fine. But like that process of unhooking when your mind tells you a story.
Hmm. Yeah.
To me, that's what
And
mindfulness.
I think that that's kind of for listeners kind of understanding that's kind of the almost the outcome a little bit of practicing mindfulness is to be able to move through that, right? To be able to observe like, wait, that's that. And the um comfort that you can have with like the self-compassion you can have to like, okay, I got hooked. Okay, I gotta get unhooked. Oop, I got hooked again. And just that back and forth, like I think it's so easy to feel especially with how I think a lot of mental health is talked about is that it's specific, it's simple, and it eliminates things, kind of how we were talking about last time. Like you can't eliminate pain, but I think it's very packaged as that. Like, well, this is going to eliminate your stress, and if you went back to it, then something must be wrong or you're not doing it right. And it's like, no, that's
No.
normal. That's actually what you need is to be able to go through that. Just ride the wave and kind of unhook yourself here and there to be able to see that for what it is and just be able to problem solve. But it's not going to eliminate the discomfort. It's not going to eliminate the moments that you believe you are the worst. Like it doesn't stick around because you have that tool to eventually unhook yourself, but it'll come back around and that's normal. Just that back and forth, the ebb and flow of some of those things, I think is so important for people to remember. Like, that's actually what mindfulness is. But
Yeah.
when you package it as like a stress reduction corporate meeting of like, hey, here's your tool, you're gonna do this, it can be so easy to be like, that's cockamamie. What are we doing with this? Like, oh
Yeah.
man.
Well, I can say that like 15 years ago, I would have been in tears.
Mm-hmm.
I would have so believed it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
compared, this has been the work of those years is, to see those thoughts not as truth.
Yeah.
That this is like an old, weird byproduct of early years. It shows up from time to time. And so the amount of time that I suffered with this idea last night is measured in minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm.
And that was specifically why I didn't want to talk it through. I didn't want to give it any more oxygen than I needed to because I already had this idea. I was like, my mind is doing a thing. I know it is.
Yep. Mm.
Just because I'm dipping in and out of believing it doesn't mean I don't recognize that this is a mind process. And so I think that what mindfulness did, maybe it did actually reduce stress in a way because I slept pretty well. I
Yeah.
fell asleep. I didn't
Yep.
stay up obsessing about it where I
Yep.
would have in earlier times. And I think for me, that's my practice
Mm-hmm.
is like, it's
Yeah.
very like thinking or it's very cognitive.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And I think that there's so many pieces to that. I mean, I think sometimes I wonder if it's more, we're talking about mindfulness, but I think also too, it's just like emotional intelligence, like to be able to
Mm.
understand your mind, and it's not being smart, right? It's what's happening. Where does my mind go? What feelings get brought up? And again, it's not necessarily analyzing and understanding the roots of it. It's being aware of what is happening with my mind. When I get faced with this kind of situation, what do I feel? What do I think? How do I physically feel? Like, what happens? And then, like, reflecting on times when it's happened in the past, right? Like, how did you navigate it or how did you not navigate it? Like there's just so much, I think. I mean, insight is, I think, something that comes from that, but it's also emotional intelligence. And I think that's a more powerful tool than anything that's going to make stress go away. Like, you have to be aware of the emotions that are existing in your brain and how your brain processes things to be able to kind of be, I don't know, a little bit more prepared to handle stress, like to manage stress, not to take it away.
Yes, that's it, isn't it? It's managing. It's not eliminating,
Mhm.
and it's not a promise of future um stress absence or stress free,
Right,
it's not that like, oh, do this and then everything will be fine going forward. There's no happily ever after.
right.
But
And I think
it's
I can
you grow
relate.
with it. Go ahead.
Right. I can relate to, I think, some of that struggle, right? When you're really stressed, like, gosh, I mean, if we go back to mindfulness when it was introduced, second year of grad school, oh my God, my stress levels were out of control. Just out of control.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
when it's so intense and somebody presents you with this thing that you have to work with, and kind of similar to what we talked about last time, like when you're in so much pain and somebody tells you, yeah, this is you're going to manage it, but we're never going to take it away. It's so hard to digest that because you're just desperate for some reprieve, you know? And I think that even though it does give you some reprieve, you know, maybe it takes you from 100 to an 80, it just you need that hope that this just won't be life anymore. You know, like this is not how life will exist at this level of stress all the time. And I think it's just hard to hold that like idea when you're really stressed.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I feel because I've had clients ask me, when I've talked in these terms with them, like, what if we were more aware of your mind? What if we didn't get so attached to each thought? Like, this type of thought seems really sticky for you. What if we practiced getting unstuck from it? Unstuck, unstuck,
Mhm.
unstuck. And I've had people ask me and want that candor of like, how do you think this will really work? Or they'll say, like, has this ever worked for you? Or have you seen this work with other people? And those are fair questions. And I really do answer honestly that yes, it's just not fast.
No.
Maybe there's like, I think you can get like maybe in a meditation or maybe in some sort of like a process that you can go to in the moment if you know how to do it. I think you can get some momentary relief right
Yes.
away.
Hmm.
But it's not going to mean that you won't get caught in a similar struggle, sometime soon because it builds on itself. It's a practice and like your proficiency with it gets better and better and better. And so I do tell people very honestly, yes, I actually do think that this works because I do actually think I live it.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I feel like in the past couple of years, I've really been able to feel like, yeah, no, it works, but it's been such a journey with it. Like, and it takes a lot of time. And one thing that I think is helpful, I share a lot in therapy for clients that I'll share today is, you know, when we talk about relief, going back to what I said before of it, relief may be you're at 100 and you're at 80 now, or
Yeah.
even if it's you're at 100 and it brings you down to 95, like there is relief that's coming from that, but it's still so high. So it feels kind of like this didn't work, you know? So like you're almost perspective of relief. Or, hey, if I practice that, maybe I'll get down to 80, maybe I'll get down to 75 if I practice it again later today or the next day, or, you know, like all that stuff. It kind of the perspective has to shift around that to understand what it is that you're getting because we are not going to have the Xanax kind of effect, right? Where it
Mm,
just brings it
all the way
all
down.
down. And you can't have that because then you get used to, well, if it doesn't bring me all the way down, you don't have the tolerance to try something that's somewhere in the middle if you've already had a taste of going from 100 to 0.
Right. Yeah, there is a process of like being able to tolerate the in the middle, you know. Um, and that's why sometimes it can be problematic if you have some way to just completely eliminate it right then. I could take, 3 shots of tequila and that would make me feel instantly calm, and then probably sick. But then I haven't learned a skill. I haven't learned how to actively cope with it as it's happening. I haven't learned that I can survive it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I I talk to people, you use like a percentage system there as you're talking about it. I've used like how long did you ruminate on this thing? Was it, minutes, hours, days? And so if it's like, well, I was stuck on it for several days. I'm like, well, let's try to get it down to one day. Let's try to get it down to a few hours. Let's try to cut down on the amount of time you're stuck in this
Hmm.
like particular thought process,
Yeah.
you know, because I feel like I'm not going to tell you that you just won't be worried about this. Like
Right.
honestly, whenever clients tell me like the things that get them stuck, like, oh, I got this email from a coworker that, was like really hostile and accused me of something, I'm like, oh, I would I would be so upset, Like that sounds terrible. Like I can usually see exactly how they got hooked because I'm like, oh, this situation is sucks.
Yeah, for sure.
And then they're like, well, how dare they say that to me? Or am I in trouble? And I'm like, yes, I can totally relate to being stuck there. But then it's like, can we reduce the suffering from a long time to a much shorter time and have you feel like you have something you can do with it? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
whenever I'm stuck on this, I can get unstuck from it. I
Mm-hmm.
can recognize that I'm in it right now. Even that, don't you think that's kind of helpful just to say, like, you're
It's
so
so helpful.
right? You're so like, you're in a moment right now.
Yep. Because you wouldn't ever want to skip that, like you can't skip the stuck, because you have to know when you're stuck. Like if we're focused on eliminating pain or eliminating stress, then you can't have the moment to be like, oh gosh, this is that feeling and name it and understand it and know when you're in it. I think there's a lot of times that people don't even know when they're in it. I mean, I that happens for me. It's like you can reflect later, like, oh, oh yeah, no, I was totally in like a spiral or I was in this feel and it's like, oh, okay, I gotta, and that becomes easier over time to recognize it in the moment, but you have to know that. And that's where I think emotional intelligence, emotional awareness, like just like being aware, like um I think about anger a lot when I think about emotional awareness because I think that anger is one of those emotions that people feel like you shouldn't feel. There's no like there's no room for it, kind of stuff like that. It gets a bad rap, but you have to be aware of when you're angry and then understand what you're angry about. Like what happened, all this other stuff. If we're always packaging that as something that doesn't belong or don't ever get angry, like you don't learn anything from that. You don't know what are any of those triggers or what in 90 times out of 10 when I talk with clients about what they're angry about or sad about, there's a perfectly understandable reason, right? That's like, yeah, that would kind of maybe either sort of irritate me or really piss me. Like there's a range, right? You could feel, but there's an understand like, yeah, that makes sense. I would feel that way too. And I think that people need to like understand that you can feel those things and learn from it, but you have to know it's happening and be able to feel it in order for you to do anything with it after.
Completely agree. Sorry, I laughed because you said 90 times out of 10.
I think I was saying 90. I meant to go 99 times out of 100. And I was like,
Sorry.
no, 90 out of 10.
90 out of 10. Totally. Totally.
Real, what is it? Buzz from Home Alone moment. There's three reasons: A, two, and
Two.
D.
I just heard one of those yesterday. Okay. Two. Okay, wait, let me put you on the spot. I don't know if I even have an answer to this, so I'm curious if you do. Do you agree that anger is always a secondary emotion?
No.
I don't think I do either, but I'm not sure why.
I think that anger, not always, but I think a lot of times anger is maybe more of a surface, right? Like it could still be anger and it could be sadness, it could be, but I don't know. I guess I think about, like that emotion wheel that I've if you've ever seen it where it's like in the center they kind of have like five emotions like sad, angry, happy, and then they like filter out of all the different synonyms or ways that you could feel.
Mhm.
I think about it like that, right? Like maybe anger is like a surface thing, but it could be irritated and it could blend into other things like sadness or gosh, jealousy or all that stuff. But no, I don't always think it's one of those things, but I think it's helpful to remember that sometimes they can be closely tied. Like anger could be the inverse of depression or something like that. Like maybe you're sad about something, so you're angry, but I don't know. It's been an interesting thing to think about anger. Um, and it's come up a lot in my work with clients who like, because I'm working with people who are burnt out, so they're angry at some point, like And when I talk with them about like how they get there, anger is this thing that kind of hangs around, but they don't do anything about it. And then, it kind of comes back and bites them a little bit later because it's something they're angry about, which is understandable. Maybe they're, not being appreciated or their boss isn't seeing their work and they're not aware of that. And I always encourage them like, hey, like it'd probably be important to talk with them about that. You're not going to come in hot and blow your top at them. But if you're angry about something and you've thought about it and processed it, I think it's okay to come back and say, hey, when you asked me to do that, when I already had X, Y, and Z on my plate, I got frustrated. And that made it hard for me to then want to do this work, all that other stuff. But it's really hard for people to think about going to a boss and talking about being angry or being angry at a workplace because it is so easily shut down. And I think that when how this goes to the inverse is I think that sometimes people want to minimize anger or, well, maybe you're just sad about something. And it's like, well, what if they were just angry? What if they were frustrated? Like, that's okay. Like, anger is telling you something. Your employee is saying something is not working. The way this works makes me frustrated. So that's a point we might need to work on quite plainly. But it's so is whoa, you're so angry. I don't think you need that's not professional. And it's like he's not kicking and they're not kicking and screaming, like they're not blowing their top. They're coming to say this isn't working, and it makes me mad.
I agree with that. What you said about like, what if we just always assume that underneath it you're actually sad, I think invalidates there could be really good reasons to feel angry. Anger has an evolutionary purpose.
Yes.
Animals display like, their heart rate speeds up. They get this activation that sort of says like, hey, get off of my food or get away from my mate. But
Or
like,
I'm scared. Get away from me, and I'm going to tell you I'm angry so that it's a threat.
so yeah, I mean, in that case, it would be kind of like it's one or it's the other, but I don't know. I don't agree that like we should always like look underneath the anger. Sometimes the anger is a message, like you said, it's information. It's like a messenger to say something is not right or your boundaries and limits have been crossed. You haven't been respected or you feel as if you haven't been respected
Yeah.
because we can always have a little bit of like a little detachment from the story of what's going on. But like that's what that flash is telling you is you feel like you haven't been respected.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also liked what you said about how it could go kind of like what I took away from this idea of it could be irritation and it could be next to something else because you can be several things at once. So
Yeah.
you can be frustrated and sad
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
you've been trying and trying and trying and it hasn't worked and you're starting to feel like you're losing hope and so you're starting to get this sadness but there's also this frustration of keeping trying and it's not working and so like yeah I think you can definitely have more than one feeling at a time and I don't think that we should discount anger so quickly like you
Mm-hmm. I think about it too a lot in like leadership too. So like I think that people have a hard time like maybe telling bosses or telling other people that they're angry, but I think that leadership can have a hard time tolerating other people's anger, like that I think that there's just so much of it that's not talked about that conflict is very important information. If I'm telling you that this isn't working, I and like don't assume the worst. Don't assume I'm making something up or you don't understand what I'm talking about. It's a point to go, whoa, hey, I thought that was working this way, but clearly it's not. Okay, we can work on that. Or can you tell me more? Like that wasn't my intention. Or I just think it invites more conversation, but I think it goes both ways. I don't think that people know how to communicate their anger to other people, and I don't think that leadership really knows how to tolerate hearing that.
well
It's just
I
so
mean there's
not professional.
well there's so many books on like leadership and like how to be a leader in maybe a business setting. And a lot of them will focus on that emotional intelligence. because I mean, just to kind of like bring us full circle, in order, if somebody comes to you who works for you and says, I'm frustrated or this thing made me mad, and they're expressing it in a way that is socially appropriate,
Hmm.
as a leader, to be able to slow down, like disconnect from your automatic response, which might be your own flash of anger, because we're just animals at the end of the day. Um, but to be able to slow down and to observe your own experience. I just had a flash of something because this person came and told me this, and I value being a different kind of leader. And now are they saying that I messed up? And so I think an excellent, leader is able to have that slowing down, that mindful response, and then to be able to kind of go against the automatic reaction and to say, tell me more.
Yeah, right. And I think that a lot of people are put into leadership roles. At least I see this in a lot of the population I work with, because I see the people who are good at their job, they get promoted, and then they just kind of land in a management or a leadership role, but they're not given any tools or skills. They are taught, hey, I worked so hard and now I am in this position of management. I have been advanced, but leadership and management is, that's totally different than being a hard worker. And they're left with these like, wait a second, like how do I do this? And I think a lot of people are then kind of left to their own devices to kind of figure it out. And I think that that's where a lot of that can get, passed down, where if somebody tries to come to their boss who didn't have any leadership or management training, but was promoted because they did really well and they don't handle it well, not because they are bad bosses, but they were never taught that this is a different skill set, like, or even just the idea of delegating and having to tolerate that. That's way different. There's so many tools um, that are different that I think a lot of people are not provided or not asked, do you want this? Like, you've
Mhm.
done really well in this position and I want to promote you. This is the next path, but do you want this? Because it actually requires X, Y, and Z. Do you want to do that, or would you like some other way to kind of be advanced or something like that in the company? Like
I mean,
those conversations don't.
did we just come up with our like corporate mindfulness training? Something to do with like how to receive feedback and how to handle anger in the workplace. Cause
I mean, one of my lists of like my Substack ideas was anger belongs in the boardroom. And here's
ooh,
like,
that's so
here's
catchy.
why.
Do it. Do it.
No, but I've actually been I've talked with other people who work in, like corporate settings or anything like that. And yeah, like that comes up a lot. I've had people say like, yeah, you would have a lot of people that would want to sign up for that kind of course, of just like turning your high achievers into leaders and managers. Like that's a different ball game, So I don't know, maybe we do, but
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to get away from this, like mindfulness gets rid of your stress, to mindfulness makes you more agile as you handle the human relations of workplaces.
yeah. I wonder if that would have been easier for me to hear when I first heard of mindfulness. That if somebody told me that this is not gonna, like, stress reduction is a byproduct, like
Uh-huh.
it's not the goal. You're actually just meant to, mindfulness is going to help you be more attuned to your emotions. It's going to help you increase your emotional awareness and intelligence. And it's going to help you be more agile in these situations. I wonder how that would have, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have put so much effort into it, because it's like, well, if it's not going to reduce my stress, what am I doing? But I don't know. I think I don't know. That's what I'm trying to package it more as for people, as like, this is not the key. This is not the miracle, drug, that's going to take it all away. Like this is a tool. It's, yeah, I'm curious. I don't know. I was also going to put you on the spot and ask, because I do this,
Okay.
how often do you reference evolution or evolutionary like practices, or in like evolutionary psychology in sessions?
I mean, yeah, here and there,
It just
you
makes
know,
sense, right?
it
Like,
was. Say it again.
it just makes sense. Like, for some reason, like when I think about it, it's like, why was this emotion here, or why was this function available to me? And it helps me understand why it feels so chronic, right? Like if we think about like anxiety, for instance, like that was evolutionarily speaking, we needed that, like there was a tool, it helped us. But now we're in a situation where we're not always in survival mode, so we still have that. And then when there's something that smells like a situation we were anxious in, or looks like a threatening situation, like we're going to go on guard. But there's so many ways in which that same feeling can be produced when there's not actually a threat. Like we haven't evolved enough to be like, oh,
Well, the way we live now is just like our, technological advances are happening at a rate now that is unbelievable compared to how quickly human civilization advanced for like the other 99.999% of the time on Earth. So
mhm,
we do live in a very strange environment for our species. I think sometimes to reference, some sort of evolutionary piece of our experience, I think it gives us kind of like it gets us out of our perspective where we are just kind of like these modern machines that can be optimized. I think it
mhm.
reminds us that we are part of the natural world,
Yeah,
that we are a species of animal and that we're not in control of everything. Like
yeah.
usually if I'm bringing it up, it's almost to flip something on its head. Kind of like you said about anxiety being a natural process.
Mhm.
If we get too short-sighted about what, like what mental health is or what it can do, it can be like, "Oh, we've come so far. We have video phones. Can't we just optimize our way out of this unpleasant feeling?"
Right.
And so we kind of flip it on its head and be like, no, that's always been with us and probably always will be with us.
Mhm.
It's a normal and expected thing to have anxiety.
Yeah.
It's
It helps me think about like a survival piece to it. It's like if this was not essential to our survival, we would have gotten rid of it, but it's not, it is.
yeah,
It is.
100%. And yeah, doesn't that change our relationship to it where now it's this thing almost to be appreciated.
Yeah.
I'm glad I can feel anxious.
Yes. Yes.
It can help me, like I'm glad I have fast reflexes to, jump out of the way of something coming at me, or I'm glad that, my body can sense danger,
Yes.
even if sometimes it's wrong, okay.
Mhm.
But, if I have this way of sensing that like, okay, I might not be safe right now, thank you, body. Really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think the heavy hitters of the ones that people like want to get rid of are, sadness, anger, and anxiety, right? But they all have purpose, right? We need them for various different things. And we gotta, for sadness, you gotta slow down sometimes, sometimes you gotta cry, you gotta feel, you need a release, you need to just veg and then you'll come back and it'll be fine. Like, same thing
And,
with anxiety or anger, they're all essential.
they are all essential. Sadness to me when I'm having a really sad time, it does come, it's like the opposite. It is part of it that if I can feel sad, it means I can also feel happy.
Yeah.
That when I have sad times, it reminds me that something matters to me. It reminds me
Mm.
that I might have lost something that was really meaningful, and I want to have meaning. I want to have things that matter.
Yep.
I don't want a meaninglessness that would make everything seem fine all the time. I would rather sometimes be sad because something that mattered to me is gone.
It was interesting this week of being able to notice feeling sad during the week. And I felt guilty for having the space to be sad, right? That to have the schedule that allowed me to be sad Wednesday and Thursday. And I knew I had plans coming up for the weekend that I was like, this will help. But And it did. But I think what was also really helpful was that I allowed myself to be sad rather than just trying to rush right to feeling good, right? Like, and I think that that helps me see like kind of what you're saying of like, I'm sad because something matters to me and it's important to feel it. And I think if I was just trying to rush through not feeling sad to just get to the things that would make me feel better, I don't think it would have felt the same. I don't think it would have been as rejuvenating as it was over the weekend if I had tried to skip over it because it would have been waiting for me, or it would have been knocking on the door when I'm having friend with one of, having coffee with one of my friends from high school. Like, are you sad? It's like, no, I created space for that. I let that be so that I could really be present, and it actually really filled up my cup. I knew it would, but I do think it was helpful to allow myself that space to just be sad. And it sucks in it, right? Like, I think that that's one thing that is always helpful for us to acknowledge to our clients and be able to empathize of, yeah, I want to get out of that. When I'm sad, I want to get out of it immediately, but I hung in there. And I think it was helpful, like I only have one way of which it worked. I went, so I don't know how it would have felt if I tried to rush through it. But that's my idea of it, of it was important to be able to feel that. It was hard to feel that, but I think it was important to feel that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you don't have your other experience in life to draw from. You didn't just get this idea out of nowhere, like, oh, I'll give myself a day or two to just feel the sadness that is already here. Like
Hmm.
you didn't choose it, it showed up.
Yeah.
And then your choice was like, what do I do with it next? But you've lived long enough and you've thought about this enough that you thought maybe the best way forward would just be to feel this. Take a
Hmm.
day or two, you know, I doubt if you just like were underneath the covers the entire time, not eating or drinking or whatever. I think you just allowed the emotion to be there
Hmm. Yeah.
without pushing it away.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that like, I still got a few things done, but I it didn't feel great. It's not like I was uber productive. It just kind of, I set the bar low and was just like, you know what? Let's just bare minimum today. That's fine. And I think it's important to recognize, like, I do recognize not everybody can do that. And it is hard sometimes to appreciate that I can do that. Like if I had a regular 9 to 5 where I was having a bad day on Wednesday and Thursday, I don't know that I would have been able to just be sad. Like my job affords me that, privilege. But I think it's important just to hear that if you can, take it, like take the time to feel it. And it sucks, but it won't be there forever.
Yeah, I think maybe there's always some piece of that that's available where, because even if you did go to your 9 to 5, to not put pressure on yourself to put a big happy smile on your face and pretend you felt something else. What if you just didn't have lots of smiles that day,
Mhm.
because you were carrying some sadness throughout your day and you could still take your meetings and you could still be, kind to other people, but inside you would just know that sadness was with you.
Right. If somebody comes to you and says, "How you doing today?" If you answered honestly of, "Just okay. I'm here, but
It's not
I'm
my
just
best
okay."
day. Yeah.
I will tell you. I give that advice a lot, and it's interesting to hear other people's reactions and even just my own experience of being able to say, "It's not great, like I'm not having a great day." People don't always know what to do with that. Sometimes it's like, uh, are you okay? Do you need to talk about wait, or I don't have the
Uh,
capacity to answer anymore, so okay, bye. Like sometimes it can be like awkward silence or wanting to be like, well, how can we make it better? And especially if you push and you're like, I don't need anything to be, it's just a blah day. Like
hmm.
I'll cruise, I'll do what I need to. It's like, what? It can short circuit sometimes.
Yeah. Mine in that situation is I say, fine, thanks.
Yeah.
Fine, thanks.
Mine is just okay.
Just okay.
Just okay.
Sometimes I say, hanging in there. How you doing? Hanging in there. And I saw this meme online it was like, if a Midwesterner tells you they're hanging in there, you need to check on them immediately. And I was like, true.
Oh my God. Hanging in there means they're literally hanging by a thread.
And their life is going horribly. Oh, all right, well, I'm aware of the time.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll wrap up on that note. I think we just kind of talked a little bit about some of our thoughts of the things that we were talking about last time, and we'll continue expanded that upon that. I think maybe next time we'll dive into a little bit of some hot takes, maybe not hot takes, but just other takes on ADHD, or just talking a little bit about the landscape of ADHD these days.
Oh, yeah, that's on the docket for sure.
All right,
All
we'll tune
right.
in next time,
Thanks
and
for listening.
thanks for listening. Bye.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for treatment of any kind.